It's a Monday. It is October 16th.
He looked at his phone. He didn't know what day it was.
I didn't. Following a Friday the 13th. Martin is in. Dan Martin, great talk, as we do usually every Monday, but we could not do it last Monday.
Well, I was in the COVID protocol, Dan. I could not. You said, I don't care. Come on in. And
Don't
I'm like,
care.
no, I wouldn't do that to others, of course. I took it very seriously, sat in the home office, listened to podcasts, told the family, got to leave me alone.
Did you really?
I did, yeah. Well, and I eventually got outside in the yard. It was beautiful outside, but it was tough, man. You had to hunker down according to the rules. So I was not able to join Dan.
What podcast did you listen to?
You know what I've been really into lately is the Murdaugh Murders, which is that family in South Carolina. You know about it? I'm late to the game. Apparently, everybody's been watching and listening to stuff.
Netflix had I think it was Netflix, had a great documentary on it. So, I watched it.
It's unbelievable. Small town South Carolina. The dad apparently murders his own son and wife, but then they go way back, and there was some kid who randomly got killed that might have been dating their son, and then there's the cleaning lady fell down the steps. So they start going back and saying, none of this stuff ever really came up until now. Unbelievable. And then there are a bunch of podcasts about it. So I was knee deep, Dan.
You and
solving murders
are members at the MAC, and they're a part of what we do. A lot of things that we do over there. At the MAC, Missouri Athletic Club, a lot of the emceeing duties fall on our laps. And I appreciate that. I always enjoy doing that, but I had a hot cup of coffee from the MAC, little workout, and I know it's something that you enjoy as well.
You got a workout in already?
Yeah.
Okay, because we start this thing early, folks. I was here at 7 doing show prep. Actually, the real story, I love the MAC. It's a great spot. 2 locations, Dan. Downtown, the original, and then the West Clubhouse, where the kids can go nuts all summer on your bill with the pool.
Oh, my God.
Outside.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
But when I
But it's very fair at the MAC.
Yeah, it's a great spot. I mean, I've said this before. You can do social if you just want to hang out there and meet friends for lunch. You could just be into fitness and do some cardio or a weight workout, or you could get into tennis or squash, pickleball, take lessons, or you could use it for the speaker series. They have professors and politicians. I mean, there's something for everyone, Dan, including your piping hot coffee. Right?
It is very hot, and it's very delicious, all at the MAC. By the way,
when I pulled up today, Dan was taking the trash out from the world headquarters. I was impressed.
Thank you, buddy.
Thought you had people for that, but that's okay.
No, we don't.
That's what leadership looks like.
Thank you. You got to get in the weeds with these things and show that you can get dirty, too.
I was the president of the fraternity in college. Now, Marquette is not a fraternity school. They all would go to the bars and stuff. So if you were in a fraternity, when you say that to people now, like, oh, look at Biff over here.
Do you guys date the Omega Moos?
The Omega Moos. I think our little sisters were Alpha Chi. Is that possible?
Is that right?
But anyway, there was one year we were having they called it a suitcase party. And you can't do this now with all the rules. We gave away, at the end of the night, a guy and a girl, a couple, were going to win a free trip to Acapulco. And you had to bring a suitcase, like with your stuff, ready to go. And at the end of the night, we just draw a name out. And you got driven to O'Hare and got on a plane at midnight. It's crazy. There's no way now you could even have tickets with nobody's name on it, whatever. But to do this, the pledges had to load the basement with sand. And it was arduous because it was going to be like a beach party and all this stuff.
How do you clean that up, though?
Well, that's what the next day, they all had to come back and shovel it out. It was a disaster.
No doubt.
But I went down there. I'm sure I was hungover, and I'm sure I was wearing sweatshirt, probably dressed the same way I'm dressed today. But I got down there. I just helped them clean up. And to those pledges, it's like, okay, if you're going to be a member of this fraternity, we're all the same. We're all dig in and help each other out.
Get your hands dirty, if you will.
Yes. So to you, taking the trash out, to me, helping the pledges, it's just a show of unity and respect and leadership.
A benefit of Martin having COVID was that he was supposed to MC the Isaac Bruce Foundation night a couple of Fridays ago, and I'm getting to the point here. It was a great night. And
he's the best. He really is.
He's such a class act, and Warren Sapp was there, and I didn't have that on my bingo card of having Isaac Bruce and Warren Sapp together. But
so many jokes you and I came up with that we thought maybe we better not do with Warren.
I kept those on the back.
Because he might punch you. I don't know the man.
I think he wanted to put me in a pretzel on some of the things. But I had a lot of people, so you can tweet at us or email Martin. A lot of people coming up saying that they enjoy this and they listen on Mondays to our podcast or wherever they get their podcast, maybe listen on a Tuesday. But a lot of people said specifically, hey, I listened to you guys on a Monday and it's part of my daily routine. So if you'd like to hear this, I think more than once a week, you better tweet at us. I've tried to throw this at Martin. This is on him. He does not want to do this more than 1 week.
Well, we're open to all suggestions. Yeah, if you're a loyal listener of Good Talk, Great Talk. Did I call it Good Talk?
You did. It's a great talk.
Ooh. I was just thinking the other day, I talked to Dan on the phone Friday for like 20 minutes, and I think I ended it with Good Talk, Good Talk.
You said Great Talk.
Did I? Because I want to save that.
Oh, you're right. You did say
I think
Good Talk. Good
the
Talk.
phone call was Good Talk. This is Great Talk. Let's get into a couple topics. Got
All
my
right.
list. We're coming in hot. Dan's got his MAC coffee. So on Thursday night on TV on Fox 2, I did my commentary, the TKO.
It's gone viral, Marty.
And I mentioned that the Cardinals and Molina had talked about him joining the coaching staff. It's 100% true. Now, what I also said, I don't know if he wants to do it, and I'm not sure if they've made an offer. I'm not entirely sure where they sit, but both sides thought it might make sense. People went nuts. But then people also say online, geez, let him retire. Like, he can retire. It's not up to me. He can do whatever he wants.
Exactly.
That's not the
You're
point.
just reporting the news
Correct.
of what you know.
Correct. And people
sources.
People are saying, oh, this is stupid. This is like when people said, okay. Some people, not a lot, but some people try and just disregard it. It's 100% true that they talked. Ali Marmol and Yachty get along. People said, yeah, but if you hire Yachty as the bench coach, that could be intimidating for Ali. Doesn't matter. That's not the point.
To me, hold on just a second. That's a good thing. A bench coach that pushes back against a manager is a good thing.
And Ali, you know him. He's a very confident guy. I think he would say, hey, if you can make this team better, you make my staff better, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Now, does Molina want to do it? I don't know. But he has told people he wants to be a big league manager. I have a hard time picturing him in that role from a media standpoint, but he has told people he wants to be a big league manager. And if that's true, this is sort of an entry into that. He has managed Puerto Rico in the WBC, so that's not a stretch. My main point is it's 100% true that the two sides talked. Where it goes from there, I have no idea. But I do think that they're trying to tweak the staff a little bit, and we'll see. They haven't made any announcements yet. Last week, I think it was Boston, made a bunch of changes. What I loved about this, I think it was a pitching coach. They got rid of the Japanese translator, Dan.
Why?
I don't know.
I didn't know that.
How bad is it when you're like, all right, who we going to drill this year? Pitching coach has got to get. What about that Apparently, they had some issues with the communication with one of their Japanese pitchers.
I did not hear that.
And I started thinking, whatever happened to Eugene Koo? Remember our guy?
Yeah.
Korean,
Oh, yeah.
I believe. Was he the Sunwon-Oh guy or the
Sunwon-Oh.
KK?
Yeah, he was Sunwon-Oh. And,
Not KK.
Not KK. He was Sunwon-Oh, the final boss.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that his nickname?
Yes. Loved Eugene Koo, so we got to know him real well.
I think the Cardinals, for optics reasons, whether or not the X's and O's aren't being executed, and that seemed to be the case, and you can lay blame on the players, you can lay blame on the coaching staff, on Ali, front office. It probably falls on the laps of just about everybody. It was a collective effort. But when you finish in last place and you have your worst season in decades, if you bring everybody back, the optics are not good for the fan base. You got to do something. It didn't work, and usually the first to fall, you can't get rid of all the players, is that it's the coaching staff or a rearranging of the coaching staff. Maybe somebody goes to the minor leagues, becomes a coordinator, or they have a lesser role with the major league team. But the optics of this have to be for the fan base that you got to do something.
And I did say in the commentary, this move would not be just to appease fans, because Molina, think about the role he would have. Think about what we said this year that was missing in that dugout. The voices of Albert Pujols, Mike Maddox, Skip Schumacher, Molina. Now, in some key pitching situations, Molina can chime in.
Absolutely.
So here's what I think we should do here. Here's what we did this one other time. And the other part of it is I think the clubhouse is a little bit quiet. Arnado and Goldschmidt are great players, kind of quiet leaders. I think and the manager typically doesn't really go in the clubhouse. That's kind of like separate. He's got his office, and isn't that kind of what you've always seen? The manager says, I want to stay out of there as much as possible.
Yeah, that's their place. I got my office.
They can come to me. I post the lineup. But then the coaches kind of are the liaison or the middle person. I guarantee you.
a clubhouse is a sanctuary.
Thank you.
I don't know if you saw that.
It's a sanctuary.
You didn't see that?
What? Is this the Blackhawks where they stepped? Oh no, the Braves kid Arcia, who was, yes, that whole deal. Let's talk about that. But my main point is, I think Molina, as a coach now, let's just say the lineup late scratch Tyler O'Neill. I guarantee Ollie may be frustrated with that topic. Molina might walk in and say, "Hey, what's the deal? You're not playing? Why aren't you playing?" I think he'd be that guy.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be in that room. It might annoy some of the players, but I think they maybe need it. But to your other point, so anyway, the Molina thing, we'll see. I don't know.
The Molina thing, though, you got to pick your spots. When you're a coach,
I'm not saying every day.
Your spots.
Yep. You want to have their trust. You want to have their respect. So I'm not 100% sure that it works.
You
but
caused a firestorm.
No, but I think it's worth. I would explore it if I'm the Cardinals.
Absolutely.
If I'm John Mozeliak, is it my first choice? Because Yachty kind of does things his way. He's got a lot of leeway down there. You have to kind of accept that he's going to kind of do it his way. And you got to. But I think desperate times right now, you're saying, "Hey, I'm open to anything." People pointed out Molina as a player disappeared that last season and went to his basketball team. I think as a player, it became clear he had kind of checked out. He was ready to be retired. I think this is different in his mind. And you have to understand that the Molina family, they really believe in like teaching the game and passing it down. So I wouldn't rule it out. I don't know if it'll happen. And if it doesn't happen, I don't know if they'll ever admit that they talked or not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think it's still in play.
What do you think of the comments on Major League Baseball Network? So Arcia makes his comments about Harper. It's inside the clubhouse. The media is inside there, and it got reported.
Because he was yelling, "Attaboy, Harper!" So Arcia is mocking Harper for getting doubled off to end Game 2.
And so a couple people got talking about how a clubhouse is a sanctuary for the players. So I've always looked at it this way: until you go up to a reporter inside what was reporters' 15 minutes of being inside there, whatever the case may be, unless you go up to a reporter and say, "This is off the record," you're on stage, so to speak. It's kind of out there. There's a fine line of what you do and what you don't do, but I always looked at it this way. For instance, Steven Strasburg a few years ago were doing the game, and they went down the tunnel, but not far enough to where our cameras caught a conversation or something that was going on physically. I think that's what the case was. We didn't have the conversation on tape or anything like that, but they were looking at him physically, and they were irate that we aired it. If you are within the cameras, and this is a little different than the sanctuary of the clubhouse, but if you're within catching the cameras, because you easily could go further or you go clubhouse during the game and no one's going to see it. If you decide to do this and it catches the camera, that's on you. The cameras are your stage. It'd be like being at a play. You're catching everything that's on stage. You catch everything that's on the field or in the dugout or somewhat up the tunnel where the cameras caught you. That's on you. That's where I stand with this. You're on. I've always said it. You're on stage. Take yourself off stage to where I can't see it.
Yeah, I think if you're a player at this point in any profession, sports profession, you just assume you're on camera.
Absolutely.
You have to, unfortunately, have to assume that. What I don't know in that Atlanta clubhouse, when the reporters came in, was Arcia screaming it out loud, like wanting people to hear it? Like, ha, ha, Harper, attaboy, Harper, like openly mocking him for all to hear, as opposed to sitting in the corner of the clubhouse talking to one of his teammates, like, how about Harper? He's such a hot shot. Like, that's different. That's a little different when you overhear something. I don't know because I wasn't in there. However, when the reporter got nuked by another reporter on the Chris Russo show.
It was reporter on reporter crime.
Which I'm not a big fan of. And then after that, another baseball writer came out and said, listen, I was there. I wrote the same thing in the Washington Post. I did exactly. He did nothing wrong. It must have been very clear that Arcia was like mocking Harper.
Yes.
And he wasn't afraid. You know that there are reporters in there. They open the doors. There's a time when they're allowed in. There's plenty of time when it is a sanctuary. Those doors aren't open very often for media to be in there. So I would say sanctuary is a little strong. I mean, it's still just baseball.
Let's not take it
so far. We're not splitting
the
atom. We've got a world that's upside down right now. Yeah, let's not get carried away.
That's ridiculous.
And it's also, did that motivate Harper? Maybe, but that's not the reason the Braves lost the series. So it did open a bigger conversation what you do and don't report. But I also think
the Philly celebration was inside that sanctuary.
Yes. The Phillies are – I kind of like that team. I just can't – even Harper has grown on me. He's definitely a bro, but he's fun.
Yeah.
And he – if I were him, I'm like, oh, you mock me for getting doubled off? All right, I'm going to smoke some homers.
And he did.
And it was great. So I do think there's – as a reporter, you have to know the line. Like if some guy's on the phone, like let's say he's screaming at his wife and they're arguing about finances or whatever – that's his business. Like you have to kind of know that was clearly about the game and the outcome and mocking Harper. And it must have. I wasn't there because my wife said to me, we talked about this because she said she's reading headlines. My wife doesn't really follow sports. And she said, some reporter called another reporter a jagoff. And I said, yes.
On the air.
On the air. That's the other part of it that was jarring. It went out that way. And then I told her the backstory and she said, would you have reported what Arcia said? And I said, I honestly don't know. It would honestly, you have to be there to kind of see how it played out. But it sounds like he was screaming out loud for all to hear.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And other people, as you said, backed it up. They verified it. There's a fine line between the reporter and the player. If you're off the record, you're off the record. If you're screaming it, well, that's on you. Right. That's on the player.
And I have not heard the Braves say anything about it. Like they haven't complained. Right?
No, not that I've seen.
Like the media has been mad about it, but I don't know that I've heard the teams complain about it.
Because I don't think they care.
It's not that big a deal either.
I don't think players really care about that stuff. They got enough to worry about.
Here's the quote of the weekend, baseball related. Dusty Baker was talking about going up against Bruce Bochy. And he said, the thing about Bochy is, I know what analytics tell me. He said, if you have the book, he said, we all got the same book. And it was a very interesting thought that you know exactly what that team is going to do next. He said with Bochy, he goes, I don't quite know because he's going to do what he wants to. Like,
and how good is he in postseason, man?
It's unbelievable. And I mean, they also are winning all these games on the road. But if you have a book and everybody's got the same book, then you know they're going to the left-hander. You know they're going to pinch hit that guy. Then you know they'll flip to that. It's a great point. If everybody has the same book, then there is no guessing. But he was saying with Bochy, I'm not positive who he's going to bring in or who he's going to hit.
How about how he managed?
How about more of that in the game?
How about how he managed a few years ago against Mike Matheny? He made some moves that you thought were obvious, but he
in the 2014, the NLCS,
and he got the matchups that he wanted. I mean, he got the matchups that worked for him, and I don't care if it was lefty-lefty. Maybe that lefty hits better against lefties, which is rare, but maybe that's what he wanted, and he set him up. And he's a mastermind, man. He was 40 when he got the San Diego Padres job, took the Padres to the World Series in '98, had his great success with the San Francisco Giants, and now doing the same thing with the Texas Rangers. The guy is one of the best, if not the best, postseason manager right now in recent memory. Now, there's some older school guys like a Whitey that was awesome and some of the others that come to mind. But in terms of what's going on now and how the game is played, he's second to none.
If you looked at those Giants lineups every year, they never wowed you either.
Not really.
You'd say, Brandon Belt, hey, he's a good player. Crawford's a good player.
Michael Morse.
Yeah, I mean, Posey would have some big hits, but they always had just enough offense, and maybe one pitcher was red hot, whether Lincecum, Gardner, Bumgarner. There was always a pitcher that was red hot on the scene and a lineup that was just good enough. But if you looked at it, it would – that would be a great question. How many Hall of Famers were on those teams? I mean, not that many. Maybe Posey, but they really didn't have a stacked lineup, and yet with those –
Boy, that's a good question. How many Hall of Famers on that team?
I mean, they had who was the guy, the Fat Panda? Who was the guy they had? Sandoval for a while.
Yeah.
Kung Fu. I'm sorry, it wasn't called the Fat Panda. Sorry, that's offense. Now somebody's going to pick up, hey, you hear that podcast or that Jagoff called them the Fat Panda? But in my point on the whole Dusty comment is that if you are all by the book, then everybody knows everything that the other person's. Then there is no guessing. There's still value in kind of going with your gut, which I know is the whole analytics old school debate. It's kind of fun. I'd like to hear Bochy talk about how much he does or doesn't lean on the metrics.
Well, I think you hire him understanding that he's not going to lean on the metrics,
right.
And you've got to be thick in your skin as a front office to say, we've given him all this info, but he's still going to do what he wants to do. It's just another piece of the information, of the millions of pieces of information, and at times gut is better. Understanding your players, who's dinged up, you're not going to find that in the analytics. We've said it a million times, and maybe, just maybe, that's one of the reasons why he's winning these games.
And he's got Mike Maddox, who was here, and Mike Maddox, I think, does a lot of it. I'm sure they all embrace analytics to some degree.
It's just how you use it.
Mike Maddox is an older school guy. I mean, this is a guy who still grabs their shoulder because he wants to see how the blood's flowing or how tense they are. There's no book on that, right?
Exactly.
Mean, it's literally his feel about how the pitcher is doing.
There's a lot to get into this weekend. You had the Blues home opener. You had Mizzou with a huge win. Bernie wrote on Scoops with DannyMac.com. He thinks it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, win for Eli Drinkwitz. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. He had a big win against LSU. I think it was in 2020 at home, but it didn't parlay into greater success. I would say it's his biggest win, depending on what you do now from this time forward. How about this? Alabama, Mizzou, and somebody else are the only three teams out of the SEC right now that are bowl eligible. Think about that.
Georgia? No.
Yeah, Georgia. There you go.
Yeah, and to me, bowl eligible just rings hollow because it's 6 wins, which doesn't matter.
It does.
But it's this early that they get that 6th win. Yeah, I think it's impressive because they didn't play great. I mean, they're down 14-0. I get an email to my Fox 2 account. Just a viewer who says, this is the worst Mizzou team I've ever seen.
Did you reply afterwards?
No, and then he wrote me back an hour later and said, I guess I should have waited because things turned around. And I'm like, that's a true fan right there, riding the roller coaster.
Yep.
How about the biggest play of the game? The punter throws the fake punt touchdown. Luke Bauer, DeSmet kid, but
forgot to hold on the PAT.
Well, there's that. Yeah, but Mary Queen of Peace.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, that goes way. We drill really deep here, Dan, beyond where'd you go to high school, where'd you go to grade school. He's the pride of MQP. But
yeah, that's cool.
Not big numbers for Burden. You didn't have big numbers for Cook, and you still won the game. You still scored 38. I think that's the most impressive thing. They didn't play great, and they still got a road win. So you're 6-1. You got 5 left. You know, will you be an underdog to Georgia? Yes. Will you be an underdog at Tennessee, with Tennessee coming to you? Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe, but anyway, so could you beat Tennessee? Yeah. Could you lose them? Sure, they're ranked. South Carolina, you'll be favored. Got to be careful.
That's this weekend, correct?
South Carolina is first up, yep. And then you still have Florida, who's down, but it's still Florida. So even 3-2, which is not overly optimistic, gets you to 9-3. That's a very good year. Now, at this point, if I'm a Mizzou fan, am I getting greedy and say I'm not taking 3-2? I want to go 4-1. Okay, we lose to Georgia. That should be it. We're going 10-2. Now, who knows? Things could always unravel. You never know. But it's fun when a team jumps up and has a great season.
Did you know the numbers on Luther Burden? I knew he was having a good year. I didn't realize the great year that he's put together. As you said, he was kind of quiet over the weekend, but man, his numbers are really, really good for this season. Holy smokes.
I was doing the week to week. Our buddy James Carlton State Farm, is a huge Mizzou guy. We do these segments, and he does some NIL sponsorship with Luther Burden. You hear these commercials. So I was doing this week to week, his pace that he was on, because the record setting for Mizzou is Denario Alexander, that 2009 year.
Yep.
And I don't have it in front of me, but it was like 112 receptions, 1,800 yards, crazy. As of a week ago, Luther was just a little bit off. He was on pace for like 104 and 1,500. That'll cool down after this weekend's numbers. But, yeah, Burden's having a huge year. Again, you win that game when you didn't play great. You just hope, and Mizzou fans, and you know you've covered a lot of Mizzou, called a lot of games. Mizzou fans are always ready for something bad to happen. So now they're feeling good. They're excited. They're ranked. They're 6-1. They're coming home to be favored over South Carolina. And then if you're a Mizzou fan, though, you're just a little bit paranoid.
Now, what did you think of the Blues opener?
That was so much fun, and I'm glad they don't have ties anymore, because you used to walk away, I got a tie. And they had the shootout loss opening night in Dallas, but they played well. And then on Saturday, they flip it, and they get the shootout win. It was just great drama. At home, you get the goal from Robert Thomas in the shootout, and then Binner with the stops. And he's been great the first 2 games. And people, I think, had kind of cooled on him.
Not me. I thought this is it,
But I think some
man.
people were wondering, hey, is this guy still special? And people like Bernie Federka would say, last year he was fine. The defense was terrible. Berube said, you know how many goals we gave up from right in front? People just sitting in front. So I think they tightened it up. It's 2 games, but 2 games, you've given up 2 goals. So far, the better defense and your star goalie has been outstanding.
And it's easy to say your goalie has to be good, but it really is true with this team. Implemented a new system defensively. Your top line now minus Buchnevich, who was hurt on Saturday. Who knows how long he could be out, but I don't know how much they're going to score this year, so they're going to have to steal some games. That means your goalie has got to be awesome, and that's why I think the key to this season, and again, it's stating the obvious, but it's your goaltender, and can he get back to where he was elite? And I think the answer is yes. I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah, and that's been the most encouraging thing.
I agree.
Because if he's not, you're not going to win anything if you don't have a good goalie. He's obviously won a cup before. His numbers had fallen off, but I do think there were games last year he'd give up 5. He could have given up 8. I mean, it was that bad in front of him, and that was collective. It wasn't just the defensive players, but I think they've beaten that into these guys too.
I agree.
And I think with Sundqvist and Hayes, these are guys that Berube loves that are getting a little more grit to their game that they needed. By the way, Kevin Hayes is cousins with Big Walt. So
I didn't know that.
I texted Big Walt and I said, "Are you guys cousins?" Yeah, sort of. And I'm like, sort of. They have the same cousins. So they're cousins with the same cousins. I said, "Is this a Boston thing?" He said, "Yes, Mom and I kind of grew up like we were cousins and stuff."
That sounds like Walt.
Somehow it's a Boston cousin. They are related. It's just not. Maybe they're cousins.
You're
kids.
doing some deep dives on family members, schools, Mary Queen of Peace.
Here's my other news and notes. Al Michaels last week, 2 things. Before the Thursday night game in Kansas City, he said, "We're not going to make the sideshow the show." And I look out, the Swifties, Taylor Swift's fans are going to come after Al.
Absolutely.
They probably don't even know who he is. But he basically said, we can't make that into the show itself, which is this great debate in football. SNL did a skit the other night. I don't know if you saw that.
Did.
Making fun of how everybody's talking about Taylor Swift instead of talking about football. And then they had Kelsey make a quick cameo. They must have flew him to New York just for a 2-second cameo.
Well, they played Thursday night, and he went to go see his brother. And the Jets had a huge win yesterday.
So he was in New York for
against the Eagles.
That makes sense. Well, that was their whole spoof, was that would he be at the Eagles game in New York? But Al Michaels also online, so people are commenting. And Al's going to be 79.
He's still sharp, I think.
He's so good. But there's a story. It's an interview he did with 60 Minutes years ago or somebody.
About the steak?
How he doesn't eat vegetables.
Yeah.
He said he's never had a vegetable in his life.
And he says...
Isn't that weird?
Well, during halftime, they bring in a steak for him,
that he could eat in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? I mean, I know you're a big shot and they'll do anything you ask. Can you wait till after the game? Like, do you need a steak that bad? He's not a big guy. Like, do you really need a steak at halftime?
Well,
that you can eat, name it. Do whatever he's doing, it's working. He's great. But never eating a vegetable. Don't let the kids see that, Dan.
Well, as good as he is, and as important that he has been to the NFL and to the various networks he's worked for and worked with, they're going to do whatever he wants. Private planes, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
The steak at halftime, and what else, whatever else he needs. He adds value to.
Oh, for sure.
To me, an announcer's an announcer, and they can enhance the game, but the game is the game. That's why you tune in. Except for a guy like me that likes to listen to Al Michaels.
Well,
and
Al
maybe
Michaels,
I'm in the minority. I don't know.
No, I think that's why Amazon paid him so much money. They wanted the prestige. Hey, we've got Al Michaels doing the games. By the way, your girls all play sports, real athletic family. Shout out for women's basketball. Did you see at Iowa? They played it in the football stadium. The Iowa women's basketball team drew over 55,000.
Was it that big?
Yes,
I saw the pictures.
Record setting. It's such a cool idea. They've got that Caitlin Clark, who everybody loves. She's a ton of fun. So they drew over 55,000. Good deal for women's basketball. Shout out to all the ladies listening, and apologies for Dan's language. No, that was my language. Sorry.
And you have to do it early in the season.
Yes.
Because
it'll be snowing there.
Chilly.
It'll be snowing there soon.
Yes.
This is true. Dan, I think I've gone through all my notes. I mean, I could talk to you all day, and I have on the phone.
But you got to save your bullets for next week,
too. I got to save some bullets, yes.
We're brought to you by the Missouri Athletic Club. Also, our buddy Jim Regna at Triad Bank. For all your banking needs, just walk in. He'll be there with a cup of coffee. He can help you out. Randy Fuse, his brothers are doing great things as fall sports are in full swing. Fuse.com for your vehicles, but also their athletic facility. It is second to none. The Ascension Charity Classic, I used to say it'll be here before you know it. Well, we got a few months until it's back at it again next summer. But if you're thinking about a gift, maybe for the sports fan in your life, get tickets. Christmas is around the corner. Christmas is around the corner, brought to you by, no, I'm not going to go into Mike Kelly with Christmas, but those are the folks that help us bring you a great talk.
We're here on the 25th of December, 2023, the day after the eve of Christmas, also known as Christmas Day. What day is it, Mike? We're also in the Pasta House Studios, 19 area locations. Newest one is at the corner of Manchester and Woodlawn. Of course, you can order online, pastahouse.com. Kids are on the go, playing all those sports. Keep it simple. Tons of food when you order online, and it's great food. Pastahouse.com, Pasta House Studios. You mentioned Triad Bank and our buddy Jim Regna, the CEO over there. Also the fine folks at Marie de Villa Senior Living. They're always festive. I drove by there the other day. Clayton and Weidman Road. They've got all the pumpkins out. Soon they'll have the Christmas tree. Festive people over there, but it's a great spot for your retirement years. And appliance discounters for all your appliance needs. They're on the web at theappliancediscounters.com. This was fun. We came in hot. You took out the trash.
Yep.
That sounds like a segment. Coming up next, we take out the trash, and then we make fun of somebody who had a bad weekend.
Did you see my trash can and how full it was?
Yes. I would like you to get a plastic liner in there.
I'm not going to do that.
Well, then you just take the bag out instead of taking the whole canister.
We're trying to cut corners here and save every dime we can.
I'm going to donate a plastic bag. That's what, Dan, I'm here to help, okay?
You are here to help. Also, Lordo's Diamonds, your family's jeweler for life. Jimmy and Joe over there in the heart of Ladue. Make sure, and if you have that special person in your life that you're maybe going to get engaged to, or, well, Christmas around the corner, think Lordo's Diamonds.
Dan, this has been
a great talk.